All right, let's go into the courtroom in Georgia. This is day 2 of testimony. An emergency room doctor who treated baby JD is on the witness stand.
Michael Busman.
And you have something with you. Is what you have with you the copy of the records that I provided to you for review?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure you didn't have anything different or anything else besides that. Okay. What is your occupation?
Wait just a second, sir. Would you say your name again, please?
Michael Busman.
Yes, sir.
What is your occupation, sir?
Family practice physician.
And where do you practice?
Americus.
Do you practice as part of a medical group, or are you in I guess what I would refer to as private practice?
It's an outpatient practice that is owned by Phoebe Putney Health System.
Okay. And
I do work obviously in the emergency room also.
Okay. And so you, but besides having your family practice, which is I think is under the name Phoebe
Sumter, family medicine and sports medicine.
Okay. And in addition to practicing medicine in that office, you also have other affiliation with Phoebe Sumter Medical Center?
I am on full-time staff there, and I do work in the emergency department a few days a month on the average.
Okay. How long have you been licensed to practice medicine in the state of Georgia?
That would be 30 years, I believe, since 1995.
And can you tell the jury, please, starting from me, I presume that before medical school you would have graduated from college somewhere, is that correct?
That's right. I graduated from Emory University in Atlanta in 1989.
Okay. And then from medical school forward, or from that time forward, would you tell the jury what your educational background is?
So after college, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, South Carolina, and then graduated from there in 1994. And then I went on to Columbus, Georgia to do my residency in family medicine for the next 3 years. I graduated from there, or completed the program in June of 1997. And then I went to Columbia, South Carolina for 1 year to do a fellowship in sports medicine. So I finished in 1998 in June, and then came to Americas to start practice in August of 1998, and I've been here ever since.
Are you board certified in any particular discipline?
I am board certified in family medicine.
And what is the scope of a family medicine practice?
Really, we're trained to do a little bit of everything. So really do a lot of everything, and just don't really take people to the operating room or do any kind of major surgeries, but just from, some people call it cradle to grave, but I don't really do a lot with the newborns anymore, but we do take care of people of all ages.
And in addition to being board certified in family medicine and having that postgraduate training, do you also have experience in emergency medicine?
Yes, I've been working in emergency rooms since 1995.
As part of your medical practice, either in your private practice or when you're working in the emergency room at the hospital, does your practice include the process of evaluating, assessing, or diagnosing illness and injury?
Yes.
And do you, in the course of that, have experience and training in determining the probable or likely etiology or cause of injuries or illness?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, we would tender Dr. Busman as an expert in the general practice of medicine, including evaluation and diagnosis of injury, determination of the cause of injury, and other associated topics.
Mr. Gamble, do you wish to voir dire the witness?
No, Your Honor, we don't object.
All right, Dr. Busman will be allowed to give opinion testimony in his areas of expertise.
Thank you, Your Honor. January 14th, 2024, where were you working that Sunday?
In the emergency room at Phoebe Sumter.
And sometime shortly after lunch that day, did you become aware of there being a patient in your emergency room by the name of Romeo Angeles or Jackson Drew Angeles?
Yes.
All right, we'll hear more from Dr. Bussman after this commercial break as he details what he encountered when little JD was brought to the emergency room. Stay with us. Welcome back to Court TV Live along with Kelly Craft. I'm Ted Roll. It's good to be with you here. This hour, we're going to head to Georgia. We've been toggling back and forth between Massachusetts, the Brian Walsh case, which is fascinating, but boy, this one in Georgia. It's a pageant queen, an ex-pageant queen, is on trial for murder.
Then 18-year-old Trinity Poague, accused of killing her boyfriend's 18-month-old son last year while he was staying with her in her dorm room.
The former 2023 Miss Donaldsonville is facing 6 charges, including malice murder and cruelty to children in connection to this death.
Let's get you back into the courtroom now. We are hearing from the doctor who treated the baby at the hospital.
How did you first become aware of that patient's presence at the hospital?
I believe the nurse told me that they have a young child that is not breathing, and they were taking him to the back, which is also one of the 2 trauma rooms. And I did see a young gentleman carrying a very young kid in his arms and sort of running toward that trauma room, or walking fastly toward that trauma room.
And do you know how that child actually got to the emergency room? Or did you learn that?
Well, yeah, my understanding was that the father who was carrying the child, drove him there and then took him out of the car and brought him in.
What was the child's condition at the time he first appeared at the ER?
He was not breathing, and then when they put him in the back, we noticed there was no heart rate either. So completely unresponsive.
So what would have been done first? I mean, in terms of the care and treatment of this child?
So when they got him in the back, we had the nurses and everybody, on the case, and hooked him up to monitors and was doing CPR.
How do you do CPR on an infant?
So basically, it's about breathing. Well, ABC's airway, breathing, circulation. So had to make sure there was an airway to breathe, and then we use like a bag oxygen with a bag to deliver breaths to the lungs, and do small pushes on the heart to try to get the heart moving.
Okay. And you indicated just now with your fingers, like you were holding up 2 fingers of some sort. Is that how do you perform CPR typically at least on a patient that size?
Yeah, so typically with adults, you use your whole hand and go like that, but with a kid, they're much smaller, so you can't put that much pressure, that widespread of an area, so we typically just use 2 fingers and push on the chest above the heart.
Okay, and that's where you would perform or apply compressions?
Yes.
There? Okay. Were y'all successful? Well, let me back up. Who actually was performing CPR, if you recall?
Well, me and the nurses. I had to intubate the kid, and that means putting a breathing tube into their trachea, which is over here, which is the tube that feeds off into the bronchi, goes into the lungs. So you put in the trachea, and when you push the bag, the oxygen is flowing, but you push. Well, when you get it in the machine, actually, well, you could push it with a bag and then hook it up to a machine. The machine does it for you, but that gets the air right to the tubes that go into the lungs, and it delivers the air and the oxygen.
So in effect, I mean, would that bypass, if there were any blockages or narrowing or something of the airway, would that bypass that?
You get Well, we would know if there was a blockage because there's something called a carbon dioxide monitor, and you just hook it up to that thing, and when it turns purple, it means that it's in the right place, and it did. So it was in the right place, and it was getting good ventilation, and we checked the machine to see about the oxygen level, so that was in the right place, and it was getting good ventilation.
When you, once the child was at least momentarily stabilized, did you have an opportunity to examine the child and determine if there were any injuries?
Yes, the first thing I noticed was there was a lot of secretions around the nose, because we usually look at the front of them first, I thought it was, when I first saw the kid, I thought it was some sort of facial deformity, but it turned out it was just some secretions, some of which were dry, and then we cleaned that off and suctioned it off. Then it was clear that it went away, and you could see the nose, and it looked a little swollen, but it looked relatively fine other than the swelling.
Okay.
And then let me state that we did give, okay, go ahead. We did the CPR, we did the intubation to do the breathing, and we were doing the 2 fingers on the chest to try to stimulate the heart.
Were you successful in restoring a respiration and heartbeat?
Well, we had to give medication, so epinephrine, and after, I'm not sure exactly how many doses, but after a few doses, we did get the heartbeat back.
Once you had the heartbeat back and you were cleaned off the fluid and so forth on the child's face, did you? From that point forward, were you able to identify any injuries that it appeared that the child had suffered?
Yes, noticed swelling on the face with some bruising, but the big one was the back of the head was really, really swollen and had some fluid in it. It was probably, I don't know about that, I don't think you can see my hand, but about that size.
And were you able at some point to determine what the injury was to the back of the head?
It was obviously trauma, but the extent of the trauma, once we got once we got the kid more stable and got the heartbeat back and the breathing machine working well, and we didn't have to do CPR anymore, we did a scan of the head and we saw the extent of the injury.
And what was the extent of the injury to the back of the head?
A big occipital skull fracture, which that is on the back of the head. And I believe there was also a parietal lobe fracture, which is sort of on the side, sort of toward the middle or the side. And that would explain all that fluid, definitely the trauma. That would certainly explain the fluid in the back of the head.
When you say fluid in the back of the head, what would have been the fluid? I mean,
likely blood. Blood.
And what would cause an injury like that, the fracture of the occipital bone and the parietal lobe?
A direct blow or trauma, some sort of blunt trauma. So in other words, you wouldn't be walking around and all of a sudden fracture your occipital lobe of your skull. It would have to be from direct trauma.
When you say direct trauma, you're talking about a blow essentially delivered to that particular part of the head?
Yeah. Or the head delivering, hitting something else. Either way, but some sort of impact of the skull, either it hitting something or something hitting it.
Okay. Were you able to determine whether there were, and we're going to come back to that as well as the other injuries in just a moment, but did you determine whether there were other injuries as well?
When somebody's unconscious, they can't tell you what hurts them, and they can't complain. So I saw the obvious at first. It was the facial and the skull injury, and couldn't really tell much else of what was going on at the time. But then after the scan of the head, we did the whole body, and we noticed that there was a liver laceration also.
And did you obtain any information from anyone as to what event or events may have been involved in causing the child to suffer this trauma?
Yes, I did talk to, I believe, she's girlfriend of the father when she came by, and I did ask what happened.
Okay. Do you recall what she told you, or?
Yeah, I think I'd have to review
in general terms.
I'd have to review my notes, but at first I recall that something about. I'd have to review the notes, but this is and it's in there. But my recollection is that baby or the young child was not acting right, and she may have just shook him just a little bit to see what was wrong.
Okay, so part of the information she gave you was that he wasn't acting right, and she shook him. Did you receive any information from anyone that would explain that might explain at least the occipital fracture?
Well, then
you're welcome to review.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to look for, to see what I documented. But then later, I think there was she may have told me that he might have fallen off the bed. But it's in here, and I have to look at exactly what I was told. It's in my notes, so I will try to find that, and we can. Let's see. This may be it. Okay. Patient was staying with his father's girlfriend when she reported that the child was acting oddly. She shook his shoulders a little bit, and he was difficult to respond. That is what I just said pretty much. And then she called the father to pick him up, and he quickly arrived. Upon arrival, it was reported that the child was completely unresponsive and he was not breathing. Father took him to the emergency department. He arrived. He had no palpable pulse and no spontaneous respiration. So that is what I was told originally.
Okay. Did you have any subsequent conversations that you recall with? And when I say conversations, I mean whether it was a question or two or more extensive. Did you have any further communications with the girlfriend as to what might have led up to the child being unresponsive?
I did. Wondered whether it was possible that there was some, because in the beginning we didn't know what was going on. We have to ask everything, Before we knew about the skull fracture and everything, we knew he was unresponsive. So I was wondering if he could have got into some medicine or something like that. If there was any medicine laying around. But she said possibly. But medicine obviously would not have caused the skull fracture. I seem to recall, and it would be in my notes, but I have to find it. That was the initial thing, was that it wasn't acting right, and kind of shook his shoulders a little bit. And then he got unresponsive. But I do recall hearing something about maybe falling off the bed at a later time, and that's in my notes somewhere, but I have to find it.
In any event, is it fair to say that what was reported to you was a claim of some sort of accidental trauma?
Yes.
Okay.
Hugely important witness here, because the question that the jury's going to have to figure out is, how did little JD die? And then the harder one, which this doctor can't answer, who did it?
Yeah, sure.
How did it happen?
That was an interesting choice of words, though, when he was talking about shaking the baby, because I'm wondering, did she just say, used that word shake, which is not, you're not supposed to shake a baby.
Right.
But she meant she was adjusting. I don't know.
I guarantee you, I hope, on cross-examination, the defense attorney clarifies that.
That needs to be clarified.
I guarantee you, a juror, just like our viewers and just like us, when you hear shaking baby, what?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Let's get a break. We'll have more of the doctor on the witness stand as the defendant. She's very active in her defense. She's been taking notes, very attentive. We'll get you back into this Georgia courtroom right after this.
The disappearance of mother Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
Mr. Walsh was suspecting his wife of having an affair.
The massive trail of evidence.
This incredible timeline of Google searches.
It shows everything that was in his mind.
He searched how long before a body starts to smell.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Started.
Back to court in just a minute, but first here's a quick look at some of the other cases we're tracking today here at Court TV in Massachusetts. Testimony continues for the husband accused of killing and dismembering his wife on New Year's Day in 2023. Our Matt Johnson is going to join us live for more from the Walsh, and we'll be heading back to that courtroom as well.
Also, we are in Florida. A jury will soon decide whether to recommend the death penalty for a man who pleaded guilty to killing a police officer.
And in Kansas, sentencing underway for a retired Air Force veteran who pleaded no contest to child endangerment charges in connection to his 6-year-old adoptive daughter's death after she was forced into a cardboard box.
We will keep you updated on all of these trials throughout the day. But for now, let's head back to Georgia for the pageant queen child murder trial for Trinity Poague. Still on the stand, the emergency room doctor who treated baby JD.
Now, with regard to the skull fracture and the bleeding at the back of the head, how long would it take a patient who suffered that injury, okay, the skull fracture and the bleeding, how long would you expect it to take a patient to exhibit symptoms of that injury?
Pretty immediate. That extent of trauma, it would happen really quickly. I mean, it wouldn't be acting normal literally within seconds after it happening.
Okay, so almost within seconds you would expect some symptoms
yes.
to appear.
Some symptoms, yes.
And then with regard to like unconsciousness and that sort of thing, how long would you expect it to be before you might observe those symptoms?
Can't put an exact time frame on that, but I would say 30 to 60 minutes with the extent of that trauma.
Is there, in your opinion, any reasonable possibility or reasonable likelihood that the child might have suffered that skull fracture the night before he came to the hospital?
No, that's highly unlikely. I think symptoms would have developed a lot sooner.
Do you have an opinion as to the likelihood that after the child received the injury, that he would have still been behaving normally, sitting up, having fine motor skills like being able to hold a cup and use the cup, sitting up in what is a normal fashion, I suppose, for a toddler, playing, not crying, and so forth? What is the likelihood that you would find a child behaving that way after sustaining that injury?
No, not going to happen. Right after the fall, he may not go unconscious right away, but he's not going to be behaving normal at that extent of trauma. It's going to be abnormal. It's going to get progressively worse.
Are there any other symptoms that you would find that are typically or commonly associated with a head injury besides unconsciousness and so forth?
Well, you know, an adult, we would say altered mental status, which means they get confused and stuff like that. And a kid, it's a little bit harder to determine that. We just say they're not acting right.
Okay. What about nausea? Any relationship between an injury to the head and nausea, and typically?
A lot of people that have head injuries or concussions do have nausea, and some have vomiting. Yeah.
How, in terms of, and I understand if you can't put a specific time frame on it, but what kind of a general time frame would you expect before some of those secondary symptoms like nausea appeared?
It can happen fairly quickly, but maybe 30 minutes. It can happen within minutes or an hour after.
Okay. Now, with regard to the, you indicated there was some swelling to the face and marks of some sort on the face. Is that right?
Yes.
What were the nature of the marks or evidence of injury with regard to the face?
So a little bit of swelling and a little bit of bruising or bluish, maybe a little bit of black discoloration.
What would cause a child to have bruising and ultimately swelling on the face?
Yeah, so some sort of pressure to that area. So it could be hard hand pressure, or it could be bumping up against something or something hitting it. Any of those things could do it.
Something that applied an impact of some sort or another?
Yeah, right. And if it just caused bruising and didn't cause a fracture, the impact may have been a lot less intense.
Okay. Over the bruising and the swelling that you saw, do you have an opinion as to whether it appeared to be recent or fresh or acute, whatever word is appropriate?
You can't really tell. I mean, it could be anywhere from an hour to, maybe 8 hours, or it could possibly be a day before, but it wouldn't have been a week or two before. So bruising can show up within a minute, or it can take several hours to show up.
Okay.
All right, Dr. Bussman on the stand there, detailing what he recalls using his notes on what happened to JD, this 18-month-old little boy who lost his life. Why? How? Josh Schiffer with us. Oh, it's hard to hear, just realizing what this child went through. This 18-month-old in a dorm, a college dorm. It's just horrible.
And this is trauma on all the levels. Imagine being that healthcare provider or a staffer that has to receive a child in this condition and then witness all of this happening. And it's why these crimes really bring me to the ripple in the pond and the butterfly effect, where these violent acts and tragedies really do affect far more people than just the immediate stakeholders. And the doctor's doing a very good job at the hands of the DA. There's no pressure. There's no yelling, screaming, no, this is scene fulfillment. This is talking about what a reasonable professional this doctor is, how they have the appropriate care setting for this child, JD, to be brought to, and immediately what the doctor was presented with, because he has the complete independence as a witness. This is someone who is clearly sophisticated, smart, observant. He's a doctor. He's the kind of person we look up to in our community, and he doesn't have a specific perspective that he's pushing. He doesn't have an agenda against patients, for patients. No, he's there to take care of people. So juries love eating from what this testimony is offering, and it's been very almost pleasant considering what the subject matter is. Very authentic, very reliable. I expect the jury to take this testimony as some of the most impactful and reliable they hear throughout the entire trial.
Josh, as a defense attorney, in particular, I want to ask you about when Ted and I were talking about the shaking, how she mentioned shaking, or she may have shook the baby. As a defense attorney, how are you going to handle that? How will you address that? How are you going to clean that up to make it seem like maybe this was just a bad choice of words? I don't know, but what would you do with that?
Yeah, it's about creating more to that phrase. Right now, at a very limited level, they've just got these couple of words, which are provocative. They're loaded. You say shaken and baby, man, everybody's brain goes to the same PSAs and all the news stories from the last 30 years. So a good defense attorney is going to expand that conversation. Okay, so there was this discussion, and you used the word shaken. Did you really say shaken? Shaken's a loaded term. Get them to talk about it, but not in a really directed manner where it's clear to the jury you're trying to trip them up. No, it's got to be honest that when you get into shaken, that was really just an aside. And in fact, when you spoke with the state about this case, did you talk about the word shaken? And you can inject a little bit of that. This is manipulated. You're being told what to do. Because you can't call the doc a liar. You come out as a defense and start calling people liars, that shuts down your jury immediately. And if you're explaining, you're losing. You've got to have this doctor come out and say, well, you know, it really looks like this, and that. But there's other possibilities out there. That's how the defense scores huge points, is if they can elicit some sort of testimony opening a door to, it wasn't a vicious assault that killed this 3-year-old. I don't think it's the falling off the table. I think that just doesn't go. But you're trying to get any words from this doctor to show beyond a reasonable doubt this is exactly what happened. Well, we're not really there. There's this other possibility.
Yeah, good point. All right, let's get a break. When we come back, more from the doctor, and then we'll anticipate the cross-examination. How will the defense handle this doctor who, as Josh said, seems as straightforward as can be? Stay with us.
Be right for you.
Back now to Sumter County, Georgia, where testimony is underway in the pageant queen child murder trial.
The defendant here, Trinity Poague, a former Georgia pageant queen, is facing life in prison after prosecutors say that she killed her boyfriend's toddler son.
Poague was arrested last year after 18-month-old Romeo J.D. Angeles was found unresponsive in the college dorm room. He later died at the hospital.
Let's go back to the courtroom now. We're listening to the ER doctor who was there at the hospital when J.D. was brought in by the father.
Now, with respect to you said there was a liver injury, a laceration, perhaps, to the liver?
Yes.
Is that right?
Correct.
So what would cause the liver to be lacerated?
That would be also from some sort of direct high-impact blow of trauma.
Was there anything that you observed in terms of the laboratory testing or chemical testing of the child's blood and so forth? Was there anything that you determined or observed with regard to those numbers as they relate to the operation of the liver?
Yes.
Function of the liver?
Yes, there are 2 liver tests that were very, very elevated. One is the AST, and that was it was over 8,000, and normal is up to about 40. So that would be, whatever, do the math, 200 times normal maybe, or 20 times normal. Yeah, probably 20 times the normal level. And the ALT was was over 5,000, and that would be, I don't know, 15 times normal or something like that.
15 times?
I think so. I think that's the right math.
Okay. And
40 times 15, yeah, it'd be, I think so, yeah.
Those test results, I mean, those, whatever that demonstrates, those levels, would that be reflective of an acute injury to the liver or reflective of a chronic condition with the liver?
Well, it could be both, but the bilirubin level was normal, and if something was chronic, you would expect the bilirubin level to be elevated. So the fact that the bilirubin level was normal means it was a relatively acute injury.
Let me ask you to assume that the injury to the child, whatever that injury was, that the injury to the child, the trauma to the child, occurred the night before, and that after it occurred, that the child was still observed sitting up in no apparent distress, holding and drinking a sippy cup, then went to sleep normally, slept for 8 or 9, 10 hours, woke up and was still behaving normally for another hour after that. Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not that would be possible if the child had sustained the injury the night before?
Injury to the head or liver?
The injury to the head.
Oh, no. If it was to the head, there's no way the child would have been acting normally for that period of time.
A while ago, when you referenced a 30 to 60 minute time frame, just to be clear, is that the time frame that you would put on that injury in relation to when the child appeared at the emergency room?
I believe that's right. I believe that's what happened.
That it would be somewhere in that range, no more than 60 minutes before the child appeared that he suffered the trauma.
May need to ask that question again. I'm sorry.
Okay. A while ago, when you made reference, you said that the brain injury, that the head injury would have caused significant symptoms within 30 to 60 minutes at the outside. Is that right?
Correct. Significant symptoms, yes.
Okay. So those symptoms, when we say 30 to 60 minutes, are you referring to the time frame from the time the injury was suffered or the time the symptoms first appeared?
I have to think about what you asked me. Let me think about that for a second. It would have been 30 to 60 minutes for the kid to have significant symptoms after the injury occurred. Okay.
So from the time the injury occurred, you would expect those symptoms within 30 to 60 minutes?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear on. Right. Let me ask you this. Would you, if there was bleeding internally, like around the liver, for instance, how would that blood travel to or enter the digestive tract, the intestines or the colon or whatever?
Usually, if there's injury to the colon or the intestines, that's where you would see blood go out through that way, because that's the exit route. But from the liver, it's not really, I don't think it's gonna go out that way for a while. Your body will just absorb it over time, and it's not a direct link, if that makes any sense. It's not.
Interesting response there. They'll have to unpack that, see what happens. We're going to get a break. More of this case from Georgia when we come back. You're watching Court TV Live, your front row seat to justice.
The disappearance of mother Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
Mr. Walsh was suspecting his wife of having an affair.
The massive trail of evidence.
This incredible timeline of Google searches.
It shows everything that was in his mind.
He searched how long before a body starts to smell.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Back now to Georgia, where it is day 2 of the pageant queen child murder trial.
The defendant here, Trinity Poague. She was arrested last year after 18-month-old Romeo J.D. Angeles was found unresponsive in her college dorm room. She faces, if convicted, life in prison.
Let's head back into the courtroom now. We are listening to testimony from the emergency room doctor who treated J.D.
It's not a direct channel out. The liver is an internal organ, and it doesn't go right into the colon. It takes time.
So it would take an injury to have something that caused bleeding in the intestines, or would cause the child to have bloody stool.
Yeah, it'd be an injury to the intestines, or it would be a what they call inflammatory bowel disease, but that's not necessarily anything acute. That's just a chronic condition that could cause that. If it was most liver lacerations have to be repaired with surgery, but I guess if you had a real small one, it may heal on its own with that blood that leaks out. The body just has to absorb it over time and then excrete it. That's how that works.
Okay. So anatomically, there's just not a route to travel from there to there.
Not a direct route.
Okay. With the injury to the head and the liver, would you associate those with a single impact of some sort?
Well, it could be one event, but it wouldn't be a single impact because the occipital portion of the scalp was on the back of the head, and the liver's more on the front of the body, so it'd be nearly impossible to injure both with one blow, but it would definitely have to be 2 different blows.
Okay. Would the injuries to the face, the bruising and swelling on the face, would you expect that to be the result of the same impact that caused the injury to the back of the head?
Likely not, although the only way to be possible is if your head fell into a round, if that makes any sense. If the head fell into here, it could be possible to get them both at the same time, but not likely. Have to fall into a roundish hole with, on both sides, but not likely.
Okay. Falling off of a bed or a chair, would that cause both of those injuries simultaneously?
Well, a chair, no. I mean, too low to the ground, nowhere to, nothing below it but legs. Not both injuries. A bed, you'd have to hit in more than one place falling from a high bed, but you'd have to hit in more than one place for that to happen.
Let me ask you to consider the possibility that the child was sleeping on an air mattress that's 6 or 8 inches off the floor and at some point rolled off of the air mattress onto a hard floor. Is that the sort of impact that might cause all of these injuries?
No. Possibly a small bruise to the face, but not a liver laceration and not a skull fracture.
What if the child was sitting in a chair that was 13 inches above the floor and fell over forwards and hit the floor from the chair? Would that be the type of impact that you would expect would cause all of these injuries?
Maybe some bruising, but I can't see how they would fracture a liver, and certainly would not hit the back of the head if falling forward.
Do you recall that in I think in one of your notes, or perhaps it was a nursing note, that there was a reference to a pink frothy sputum on the child's face, around his mouth and nose?
Yeah, that's what I referenced in the beginning with the nose, the sort of coating over the nose and stuff like that.
Well, what would that substance likely be?
Likely fluid from the brain, or due to the skull fracture, but cerebral spinal fluid.
Cerebral?
Spinal fluid.
Cerebral spinal fluid. No further questions right now. Thank you.
Cross-examination?
Yes, young man, please go.
All right, we'll slip in a commercial break, but first, Josh, if to Kelly's point earlier, Josh, if you're defending this young woman, there is some unknown, right? There's a glaring sort of what happened question. How do you lean into that to keep jurors thinking about reasonable doubt?
Well, it's just engaging honestly and kind of forthrightly, acknowledging the vulnerability that, man, this looks bad. This looks terrible. It's not that you're arguing to the jury, this didn't happen. More, it's the state's making these allegations and they don't have the full truth. And I'm not angry at this doctor for presenting his honest testimony, but my defense is that he wasn't there and he can't fully pin down exactly what happened. And there are alternatives to the state's theory. Because if you get up and defend this case by calling everybody a liar and insulting and being aggressive, no, you just sunk it. You make her look terrible. They're going to have to deal with some of her texts, with some of the ideas that she was frustrated as an 18-year-old in love with a 20-something-year-old and wanted to have a family with him and wanted to have kids with him, but he already had a kid that wasn't her. Ooh. It's going to be tough, and you've got the age issue where jurors are automatically going to be reversing roles with her and saying, hey, how would have I or one of my contemporaries dealt with this situation at 18? And that then gets you into, well, I got some friends that would have been far better behaved than the allegations, but then there's a couple friends who you go, yeah, I could see them completely freaking out, snapping, and creating a bunch of lies. So this is dangerous territory. There is a defense, though.
Josh, real quick, when you mentioned the word alternatives, I mean, that is the prosecutors putting forth some other alternatives. I mean, they weren't there. The doctor wasn't there. There could be some alternatives no one's thinking of that could have happened, but you have to have the jury buy into that.
And that's literally what the state's doing quite well in front-running a few of those issues where they know, all right, this would be a possibility, the unknown is out there. The state knows they're never going to get a doctor or this witness to say 100% this is exactly what happened. No one in medical likes saying that. Doctors do not like 100% this is what happened. So the state's trying to extinguish those before the defense gets to bring them up. Defense is still going to bring them up.
Yeah, reasonable degree of medical certainty is where people are comfortable. Past that, not so much. Josh, as always, Thank you, sir. We'll get a break. We'll have more from Georgia, plus more from Brian Walsh in Massachusetts. Welcome back to Court TV Live, along with Kelly Craft. I'm Ted Rollins. We're in Georgia this afternoon, also in Massachusetts for Brian Walsh. But this Georgia case, boy, what this 18-month-old little boy, J.D., ends up dying. And now you have the girlfriend who was taking care of J.D. in this college dorm is facing murder charge.
Prosecutors say then 18-year-old Trinity Poague killed 18-month-old J.D. This was back in January of 2024.
The boy had been staying in the dorm room there of 2023 Miss Donaldsonville in her dorm room when he suffered these injuries. And there are some questions, but here's what's not in question. He injured his head dramatically, skull fracture, and his liver was lacerated.
Yeah, that one's hard to explain away. The defense is pointing the finger back at the boyfriend, saying that Jay Williams, they're saying that the child fell off the bed while Williams was passed out drunk.
Let's go back to the courtroom now. The individual that treated a little J.D. is on the stand, still direct examination.
Dr. sorry for the delay, and thank you. As you see up there, do you see there's 3 diapers that are represented in that particular
I do.
exhibit? Now, the one on the far right seems to have fecal matter in it, correct?
Yeah.
In observing
yes.
that particular diaper, would you agree with me that it has an indication that it possibly has blood in it?
Yes.
That's sort of clear to you in just viewing it, is it not?
Yes, correct.
And if you had seen that on a patient that came to see you, would you do any kind of follow-up to try to determine why that particular child had blood in the diaper?
Yes.
And would you agree with me if that diaper, whenever it was worn, that fecal matter would have taken at least some time to have shown up in the diaper from the time the blood began, at least an hour or more, correct?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Possibly longer, correct?
I agree.
Now, if I go one step further, I know you had seen this young individual that you, J.D., that you had seen in this trauma that had some injuries. And he had, at the time that he came to the ER, he had a diaper on then, did he not?
I believe so, but I can't say that for sure.
And I'll represent it's not that diaper. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
But if he had worn that diaper sometime previous to when he got taken to the ER, would that be an indication that he had some other issues going on in addition to whatever you may have seen at the ER?
Well, if there was blood in the fecal material, obviously something is going on with that.
Now, that's fine, it's off. Is there any reason, is there any doubt in your mind as you look at that diaper that if you were looking at it as a professional with your knowledge and expertise, any doubt that you believe is possibly blood in that fecal matter?
Oh, definitely.
In fact, you actually looking at it feel like there is blood in there, don't you?
I think so, but I'd have to get closer to it. I believe so. I mean, can't really see the color great with the light, but I would say most likely.
Kind of stands out, doesn't it?
It looks like it's a little bit red.
Okay. Now, when we're talking about young children, before we get to the actual child that you were caring for, I want to ask you some questions about children that age. This is a child that was apparently 18 months old, correct?
Correct.
And children under the age of 3 and certainly under the age of 2 are still developing in some ways physically, are they not?
Correct.
I mean, I know children are developing physically up until 18, but I'm talking about here as an example, their skull is still developing, is it not?
Yes.
And so a skull that my brain, my skull, whatever it is, as hard as it is already fixed together and gives me good protection as a skull should, correct?
Yes.
Now, a child that's only 18 months old, the skull's still developing, it's still in sections to some degree and not hardened yet, correct?
It is in sections and it's developing, but there are growth plates in there, growth plates everywhere, but I believe it's still developing, yes. but I think it's, I mean, it's closed because something we call the anterior fontanelle, which is a soft spot right here, usually closes in about 6 months.
Well, and I'll get back to that in a minute about that, but, well, I will ask you, no, but you have what you call sutures in the skull, correct?
Right.
And those sutures are the ones that, whether they close or not, finally make a firm skull, correct?
Correct.
And there are tests you can do if you're caring for a child as a pediatrician or a family doctor for that child to try to determine how that's progressing, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that'd be maybe X-rays or some CT scan.
Well, let me ask you this. In your family practice, do you take care of some young children as well?
I do.
I mean, from as young as 18 months?
Some.
And do you carry it on through to 10, 12, 18?
Yeah, I don't see as much as the really young ones on a regular basis as I used to, just routine stuff, but I do see some.
But you have a general, you've had general experience in more than just a few cases of caring for children anywhere from the ages of a year old until 10, correct?
Yes.
And you're familiar with that. Those children normally have a schedule to come see a doctor for checkups and things, correct?
Correct.
And that's a pretty rigorous schedule of time coming. I mean, in other words, it's more than just once a year or two. It's fairly frequently, isn't it?
When they get a certain age, then they go to yearly. So it starts off like 1 month, 3 months, 5 months, and then 1 year, and then 18 months, and then maybe every year after that.
So that's a fairly accurate schedule of how you see it as a child going to visit a doctor, correct?
In the beginning, yes.
And one of the purposes of that is, well, one purpose is to make sure they get their vaccinations and things like that, correct?
Yes.
Secondarily is so the doctor can view the child, examine the child, and make sure they're progressing without any issues as well in that young age, correct?
Correct.
And a lot of times a doctor can determine a lot about the child as he's watching him come in and out as far as how he develops, whether there's a problem or not, correct?
A lot of times, true.
And sometimes small children have odd problems that you would not anticipate, but if you see them regularly, you can get a hold of whatever the issue is and try to correct it.
Correct.
And on the other hand, if you have a child that has not gone for any of those type things, it's hard to know what their physical well-being is, correct?
Right, you don't know their baseline.
Right, and it's important to know the baseline if you can get it, correct?
Yes.
Now, of course, the child that you were looking at in the emergency room that day, you had no baseline on, correct?
Correct.
All you could depend on is here it is, and I got to deal with the child right now, correct?
Right.
Small child, would I be accurate to call it a small child?
Small child, not breathing, no heart rate, correct.
No prior history, you don't know anything about it, correct?
Right, just ask the question, but no, I didn't know anything about the prior history.
Okay. Now, you had talked about, or you said there was a liver laceration.
Yes.
Now, isn't it true that at least on some occasions, that if someone improperly does CPR, or does it too hard or in the wrong location, it can cause a liver laceration just from that while you're working somebody up trying to save them?
Well, in the wrong location, but we do it right. I mean, yeah, we do it right. It's not really likely to cause a liver laceration unless you're doing it over the liver, and we do it over the chest.
Now, the child, though, it's harder. Would you agree it's harder with a child than a grown person, CPR?
Well, just a smaller area, that's all. You just do a smaller area, less.
Smaller areas are a little bit more difficult, though. You don't want to get off on that because it can cause problems, correct?
Well, that's why you use like 2 fingers instead of a whole hand.
Just in you keep up with the literature on liver lacerations and that type thing, do you not?
As much as I have to keep up with any literature, yeah.
You're aware that the liver lacerations from CPR go anywhere from around 1% to 11% when it's performed in an emergency situation?
There are small instances of it. I believe it's more likely on the left side of the liver when it occurs. But if it's gone off, there is a small chance of that.
Now, and I'm not accusing you of necessarily doing anything wrong, but just in reality, that could occur, correct?
It's possible, but in this case, I would say very unlikely.
Now, you did say, though, at times, you were not the only one giving the CPR, right?
Right, Correct.
So you're doing some things when someone else is performing. You can't watch everything while you're doing all the other stuff, right?
We're in the room. I'm watching, and I'm in the room watching it all.
Now,
and that was a big laceration. It wasn't a small one, so that's another reason why I think it would be unlikely that was caused by CPR, but possible, but unlikely.
Now, you were told about the child possibly, or at least there's been some conversations about the child could have possibly fallen off a bed, correct?
Yes.
Now, did anybody tell you that the particular bed that the child fell from was 40 inches high?
I had heard that.
So that's a fairly high bed, is it not?
Intermediate, yeah.
And then did anyone tell you that the flooring there was a hard concrete tile, very hard?
I don't remember hearing that.
Well, if you would assume for a moment that the flooring was also very hard, would you agree with me if a child fell off the bed from 40 inches onto a very hard concrete floor that it could cause rather significant injuries?
It could.
And I understand, I mean, one thing I do want to, I guess, address is you really don't know what happened to the kid as far as who did anything. You just know the injuries you saw, correct?
That's correct.
And you can make some conclusions or assumptions based on your medical knowledge of what you think may have caused it to a degree, but as far as the person or persons that caused it, you have no idea as you sit here, do you?
No idea. I was not there when it happened.
And you've talked about the trauma that occurred and that the trauma, say the fracture in the neck area, the back of the neck. That trauma, you had said, could occur from a rather significant blow, correct?
Yes.
Now, the blow could be from, and it wasn't in this case, of course, but it could be from an automobile wreck, correct?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
And it could be from somebody striking the child in some way, correct?
Yes.
And, of course, it could be from a traumatic fall of some sort if it hit the right way, correct?
Yeah.
Now, in addition to that, is it possible sometimes for the injury you saw on the neck, for someone to have an injury to that neck? You've testified already there was a fracture in that area.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's clarify. You're saying neck. Do you mean the actual neck or the back of the skull?
I'm saying in the area you talked about the fracture.
Yeah, that's going to be the back of the skull, the occipital area, so not the neck.
A little up higher than that.
Yeah.
That fracture, I apologize for that, but the fracture that occurred in that area, is it possible or could it happen where someone has had an accident or fallen and they partially cracked their area there, not to the extent it was when you examined the child, but had a partial fracture and then had a second thing that occurred that broke it all the way?
It's possible, but they would have been having issues even from the first event. But it's possible, but it likely all occurred at once, but that is possible.
I mean, it's sort of like if I fall down and crack my wrist and you tell me to be careful for the next few weeks because we don't want to have any more problems, and I don't listen and I go out and play basketball and reach down to catch myself, I could break my wrist completely, correct?
Yeah, but usually a break is through and through, so it goes in from one end of the bone and comes out the other end. We don't typically see it only going partially through the bone.
But sometimes you do have partial.
All right, the cross-examination from this defense attorney with this doctor. We'll get a break now, and we'll head back to this Georgia courtroom for more of this back and forth between the defense and the doctor.
Disappearance of Anna Walsh.
Her husband now charged with her murder.
All eyes on this accused killer.
The disappearance of Anna Walsh murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, he admitted to lying to police, but will this jury believe he murdered his wife? We're unpacking key testimony in the case against Brian Walsh.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
Who was Romeo Angela's.
It's my son. She gave him some Mountain Dew and like a Frito Dorito. It's Frito, like the barbecue twisted chips.
Okay.
And he was sitting there eating them. She had him in her hands. It's like he's limp. I don't know what happened. So I threw the pizza, dropped it, and grabbed him and took off.
18-month-old Jackson J.D. Drew was rushed to the hospital back in January of 2024 from his father. You see the surveillance video of him. He had gone out to get a pizza, came back. Something was wrong with his son, so he took him to the hospital. He was unresponsive. He was in his girlfriend's dorm, and later the boy was pronounced dead.
Prosecutors say the child was fine before the father left, but after just 35 minutes alone with the defendant, Trinity Poague, he was covered in bruises and had suffered severe head and abdominal trauma.
The defense is pointing the finger back at the boyfriend, saying that Julian J. Williams said that the child fell out of bed while Williams was passed out drunk. It is competing stories. There's no clear answer exactly what happened, but this doctor on the witness stand right now is the ER doc. He's on cross-examination. He's talking about how they treated and what he saw with JD. Let's go back in, pick up the cross where we left off.
But sometimes you do have partial cracks, right?
Not very often. Usually it's through and through to call it. You can have some stress injuries, but usually a fracture goes through and through.
Now, in your practice, I assume that you are required to have continuing education of some sort as a medical doctor? And you keep up with that, I guess, right?
Yes.
And in addition to that, just like me in the legal profession, there's all types of periodicals and things like that we read and keep us kind of up to date. Do you do the same thing?
I go to medical meetings and get my information through medical meetings and some articles, but I don't really read a lot of periodicals. So people choose different ways to get their information.
But you are aware they exist, such as, say, the New England Journal of Medicine. You're aware of that, correct?
Yes.
Would you agree that that's a learned journal that has treatises in it that talk about medical issues?
It does.
And one that would be somewhat dependable?
Most of the time.
Okay. I mean, I realize anybody can have an idea about what they've written, and you may not necessarily agree with it.
So,
right?
so what the New England Journal does is they publish articles, and they publish somewhat research. So it shows what the research showed, and you know that's a research journal. It's not always per se the standard of care, but it's research.
Well, let me ask you this. This isn't about the, that was just an example. Really. Okay. I don't have anything from that particular journal, but I was just trying to ask a little bit about that. But would you agree with me that research shows that the #1 accidental cause of death for children 1 and under is from falls?
Sure.
So there's no question about that, right?
I agree.
That's standard stuff that we know. And in addition to that, we know that because the child is in some ways more fragile than a grown person, that a fall for a child can be from a lesser height and cause damage to that child than it might to an adult, correct?
Possibly.
And you've seen research and literature that at times where a child has fallen from what would seem to be not a particularly tall place, maybe 2 feet or 3 feet, but then have traumatic injuries, correct?
It's possible, but I've also seen them fall from a little higher and have minor injuries likewise, so yes.
I mean, we'd all agree. I mean, I've got 2 grown children now, 21 and 22, but when they were young, they might fall from fairly high place and you go, oh my gosh, and run them and dust them off and they'll be fine, right?
Yeah, the children's bones tend to be more, for lack of a better term, rubbery than solid, so they're less likely to break. I mean, they do break, but usually it takes a little more force to break them because they're more pliable. So with an adult, it's not quite as pliable or for like rubbery, so a lot of times they tend to sprain more things instead of break them, and adults tend to, from the higher trauma, break a little bit more.
Have you heard of, are you aware of the Department of Neurosurgery at George Washington University Medical Center in Washington, D.C.?
I mean, I know it exists.
I mean, does it have a reasonable reputation for being able to perform things that involve neurosurgery and that type of thing, to your knowledge?
I can't speak to that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't keep up with them.
Do you know Dr. Omaya, O-M-M-A-Y-A?
No.
You've never heard of him?
No.
If he had published an article in the British Journal of Neurosurgery, would you consider that to be a reliable source to look at and try to learn and things?
I don't know the guy. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know how to answer that because I don't know the fella.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of Dr. Mary E. Case?
I don't believe so.
Have you ever looked at Brain Pathology, another journal that's
I do not know. No Brain Pathology journal.
Have you ever seen any in your literature, though, where a young child under the age of 3 may have fallen from only 2 or 3 feet and then had traumatic injury from time to time?
I have heard of such cases.
So you acknowledge they do exist, correct?
They do exist.
Now, they're outliers as far as they're not the common thing.
Right, because I've seen kids fall from 4 feet that are younger and just have bruising and no further damage.
You have, but you know they could fall from 4 feet and have significant damage, correct?
They could have more. I don't know how to define significant, but it could be worse. Yes.
And of course, I understand that's not, odds are not what you normally expect, but you would agree with me no matter what odds are that you can have, you're aware that, as an example, we always say, just in general talking, that the chance of that happening is greater that I'll get struck by lightning. You ever heard somebody say that?
Oh, yeah.
And we all know that the odds of someone being struck by lightning are pretty far-fetched, correct?
Correct.
Same time, though, we know that several hundred people a year get struck by lightning, don't they?
Yes.
You may have had a patient or two struck by lightning yourself. I don't know. Have you ever had one?
One.
So you've had one then. So even though the odds are great, and I mean, when I say odds, 1 in a million or more, right?
Oh, definitely.
And we know that, well, as an example, if you're playing Mega Million, the odds are 1 in 269 million, but we recently had a guy from Newton to win the lottery in the Mega Million, didn't we?
Didn't know that.
But you do know that if you win the lottery, you beat the odds pretty big.
Oh, without doubt.
But it still happened, didn't it?
Right.
Now, I want to ask you a few more questions about what all you observed and that type of thing. Give me just a moment, excuse me. You've given some estimations of some time frames you believe that when this injury occurred and then symptoms and the symptoms that you saw could have happened, correct?
Correct.
Of course, those are estimations based just upon your general knowledge of medicine, correct?
Pretty much so.
And I mean, I practice law and you practice medicine, correct?
Yes.
And that's the reason they call both of them practicing, because we're always learning and trying to determine new things, correct?
Yes.
And because we, even though we may be to some extent very knowledgeable on a subject matter, we still can't give you firm answers always. Sometimes there's some room on the outside for each one as well, correct?
Sometimes there's a range, yes.
And you've got a range, but it still could be somewhat different in some situations if you maybe don't know all the facts, correct?
Perceivably, yes. I mean, there's a range on the...
All right, pretty good back and forth. The cross-examination, in my opinion, fairly effective. Let's bring in somebody who knows what effective is all about. In Denver, there he is, criminal defense attorney Jeffrey Wolf. Good to see you, sir. Tough case. When you have a victim who is 18 months old, jurors are looking to do their job and find justice for this child. Your thoughts in terms of this, not just this cross, but the case overall?
Yeah, I mean, it is an extremely tough case when you're talking about an 18-month-old victim in a case. And this lawyer is doing an exceptional job of remaining relatable. He's remaining affable. He is keeping a good sense of humor while not being too flippant about the situation, so that he's remaining likable to the jury. What I always try to explain to clients and to explain to their family members is that trials are essentially, there's sales meetings with a jury, and you're going to buy from the person that you trust and the person that you like. And so you have to remain likable to the jury. You can't just go in there with the ball-peen hammer and smash everybody in the side of the head. You got to make them believe you, right? That's what we always say here in Denver is believe, right? And so that's what you got to do, and that's what he's doing. He's using that country charm down there in Georgia where he is remaining likable. He's cross-examining a doctor who he thinks didn't do his job, but he's not going in there and just yelling at him. He's remaining likable, he's remaining personable, and he is getting along with him. And I think that that is a technique that is really important, the law of escalating punishment. The doctor's not fighting him, so he's not fighting.
Jeffrey, are you getting that from the cross, that the way his approaches with the questioning is that he feels the doctor isn't doing the job, or is it he's just kind of coming out with different ways that this could have happened? Maybe we didn't look at that. I mean, yeah, what are you thinking about that?
Well, we know the theory of the case, right? They've got this diaper that has blood in it that they know wasn't tested. So we know that they don't agree with this doctor's theory of what happened here, and we know they think there are steps that were missed, and that they think that they jumped to a conclusion here in the way that they made this finding. We know where they're going and what they're going to argue later, but that doesn't mean you have to yell at this doctor, because this doctor didn't point the finger at their client. And so he is letting this doctor give good information to this jury by not being a jerk to the doctor.
Absolutely. It's a treat to watch, too, because the back and forth, you're learning things, and to your point, very